Strap in, buckle up, and get ready to lay it on the line. This is Not Speeding, Just Qualifying, a podcast that's just as fast as it sounds. What's good, family? Happy Friday. Happy Valentine's Day if you're listening to this on the day it drops. Hope you guys are going to have an awesome day. David Lawrence here. Welcome to an all-new episode of the Not Speeding, Just Qualifying podcast. Thank you guys so much for putting me in your ears today. As a reminder, before we get started, like, share, and subscribe our YouTube channel, the Not Speeding, Just Qualifying podcast. We're also on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. I'll give you that handle at the end of the episode. I'm not going to belabor this. We're going to jump right into it. NASCAR is back. On our Tuesday show, we previewed the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Today, we are going to go into the NASCAR Xfinity and Cup Series. Let's jump straight into Xfinity. We're going to do it just in a similar fashion we did with the Truck Series. Schedules, teams, drivers, and some storylines we're going to be looking at throughout the season. Let's start with the NASCAR Xfinity Series schedule. We'll start with three old friends returning, and that's Mexico City, Rockingham, and Gateway, which will serve as the regular season finale. Spring Bristol is back as well. Unfortunately, we say goodbye to Michigan, Richmond, and New Hampshire for 2024. We also say goodbye to Darlington on Labor Day weekend. That race will be replaced with our road course, our annual trip out to Portland, which was originally in June the last couple of years, but again, that'll now be at the end of August. Also, unique little feature I found, the Dash for Cash races will be split. They're not going to be back to back as they were in recent years. The 4 Dash for Cash races will be Miami and Martinsville. They will be split down the middle. Darlington is the race in between Martinsville and Bristol. They will basically leave Darlington for throwback weekend only. And then they will finish the Dash for Cash at Bristol and Rockingham. To the teams, a few changes there. Stewart-Haas has now morphed into Haas Factory Team. We'll talk about their pilots in a moment. JGR and Junior Motorsports have swapped All-Star cars. For JGR, the All-Star cars now become the number 19. It was the number 20, but the 19 is now back to being the All-Star car again this year. And Junior Motorsports has moved the All-Star car from the 88 to the 9, and I'll explain why that is. Viking Motorsports was an extension of RSS Racing running Fords. They've now split. They are now their own team, and they will be running Chevrolets. By the way, kicker Matt DiBenedetto back with Viking Motorsports for the 2025 season. So a little bit of driver news before we get to the driver section. Sorry. And last but not least, on the teams front, DGM Motorsports, which is known for Mario Gosselin, the Canadian former driver. He has now combined his efforts with Jesse Owuji Motorsports. Jesse now getting an ownership stake, so the team will be known this year as DGM with Jesse Owuji Motorsports. Now let's talk about these drivers, and my oh my do I have a lot to talk about, because this might be one of the most stacked Xfinity rookie fields ever. Get a load of these names. Carson Kvapil and Connor Zillage at Junior Motorsports after they did part-time campaigns in 2024. Daniel Dye and Christian Eckes now are at Colic. Eckes, of course, running for that Truck Series championship last year, same that Dye, but Dye also did some Xfinity Series races for Colic as well. Nick Sanchez steps up from the Truck Series. He'll be racing for Big Machine, replacing Parker Kligerman in the 48. William Sawalich and Taylor Gray will be jumping up from the truck, staying in the Toyota camp. They'll be racing with JGR. And Dean Thompson, also in the Toyota camp, he will be racing with Sam Hunt Racing in 2025. A couple of returning names to the Xfinity Series after his miraculous win at Daytona. Harrison Burton is back in the Xfinity Series. He'll be driving for AM Racing, while Chris Wright comes back up from ARCA. He will be joining Our Motorsports, replacing Anthony Alfredo. Speaking of Alfredo, let's talk about some returning faces in new places. Alfredo will be at Young's Motorsports. Ryan Ellis has now moved to DGM with Jesse Iwuji. Sam Mayer and Sheldon Creed are now with that rebranded Haas Factory team for this year. Brandon Jones, after 2 seasons at Junior Motorsports, is back at Joe Gibbs Racing. Parker Retzlaff has moved to Alpha Prime from Jordan Anderson Racing. His seat has been taken by Blaine Perkins. And last but not least, we cannot forget the slate of the retained and returning faces led by series champion Justin Allgaier, Jesse Love, Austin Hill, Sammy Smith, Matt DiBenedetto, the Sieg brothers Kyle and Ryan, Josh Williams, and Jeb Burton, highlighting the list of names that are returning to their seats from 2024 into 2025. For me, the 2 biggest drivers that I'm looking at this year that will probably be the biggest storylines, I will start with driver 88 Connor Zillage. You cannot do much better than what Connor Zillage did in 2024. 10 ARCA wins, 5 national wins, 4 in ARCA East, and his only ARCA West start. A class winner in the 2 longest races in America, the Daytona 24 hours and the Sebring 12 hours. A winner in the Cars late model stock and pro late model divisions. He literally won everything he competed in with the exception of the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Let that seep in. And oh, by the way, he won on his Xfinity debut at Watkins Glen, followed it up with a pair of 4th place finishes, and his 12th in Miami was the outlier. Connor Zillage is going to be something fun to watch this season. And I'm not the first one to tell you that. I'm literally just confirming. So that number 88, if he's not in championship contention come playoff time, I think I won't be the only one shocked if that is so. The second driver I'm looking at in the Xfinity Series this season, Sheldon Creed. Yes, I've been here before. Sheldon is on his 3rd manufacturing in as many seasons. Daytona will be his 104th Xfinity Series race. In his 103 previous starts, Sheldon Creed has a 50% top 10 finishing percentage. 52 out of 103. He has a 25% top 5 finish. 27 out of 103. And he loaded that in 2024 with JGR, 16. And 6 runner-up finishes in 2024, which brings him to 13 runner-up finishes. An Xfinity record that you do not want. Most runner-up finishes without a win. The good news for Sheldon, he has the 2023 championship team and crew chief. Jonathan Toney is now tasked with leading Sheldon in the Xfinity Series this year. He led Cole Custer to back-to-back championship 4 appearances in Xfinity, where Cole took the title in 23, runner-up a year ago. Speaking of 24, Sheldon's performances were rewarded with a career best 6 in the final point standings. But the biggest question now is, will Haas Factory team, Will Ford, be what finally gets Creed over the hump? Not just in the championship, but just for all of our sakes. Can Sheldon finally close the deal and get a win? It seems like forever and a day ago since his 2020 NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series title. We know he can win, but my goodness, how long or how much longer must Sheldon make himself and all of us wait? The other big story, or the other big question, who will emerge as Xfinity Series champion as the series continues to bask in its own identity? We've heard it for the last few years. The Xfinity Series has not just become just a proving ground for NASCAR's next up-and-coming stars, but it has truly become a series of its own. Case in point with its contract with the CW and how it's a mixture of the young and the old guard. It truly has become a place and a series that has done what I thought and what a lot of people thought 20 years ago was not possible. And that is for it to become its own identity, to become a breathing ground again, and furthermore, to become a place that has seen some very exciting and unbelievable racing. Oh, by the way, Casey Kane's back. He'll be racing at Rockingham for Richard Childress, and if you saw the photos from testing, he still looks like he did when he got edged out by Matt Kenseth some 20 plus years ago at the track when it was last hosting a cup race. Casey, stop trying to make us all feel old, dude. So that concludes the Xfinity portion of our preview. Now let's move up to the big dogs, the NASCAR Cup Series, and boy, we equally have a lot to talk about. Just like with Xfinity, we'll start with the schedule. Spring Richmond is the biggest talking point, replaced by Mexico City. I'll talk about that a little bit more shortly. COTA will now go to early March after Atlanta. Miami is now gone from the playoffs in October to March. Texas will now be in early May. The playoffs will now have St. Louis for the first time. New Hampshire returns. Talladega's moved to the round of 8. Oh, that's going to be so much fun. But the cutoffs in the championship race will remain the same. And oh, by the way, if you have not heard, there is something called an in-season tournament. Yes, NASCAR went NBA on us. And they will have a 5-race stretch. TNT will broadcast all 5 of them. Atlanta, Chicago, Sonoma, Dover, and will give someone $1 million at the Brickyard 400 at Indy. On the team front, Stuart Haas again morphed into Haas Factory team, but instead of 2 Xfinity teams and 4 Cup teams, the 4 Cup teams are now just 1. 2311, Front Row, and Trackhouse all bought SHR charters, taking them from 2 teams to 3 respectively, and RFK leased from Rick Ware Racing. They also will be a 3-car team this year again. Lastly, nothing big as far as shakeup, but just a team change as JTG Doherty Racing has now become Hayek Motorsports. On the driver front, 2 rookies will vie for Rookie of the Year. Riley Herbst comes up from Xfinity, and some guy named Shane Van Gisbergen. You've heard of him, and you knew this day was coming. SVG is now full-time with the big boys, and he has taken a very classic number, the number 88. Surprised they didn't let him keep his 97, but I digress. For returning faces, AJ Allmendinger is back from the Xfinity Series, and Ty Dillon, after a year away in the trucks, is back to Cup. Both of those guys will be in the Colic cars, and Cole Custer, after his 2-year run in Xfinity, is back in Cup, driving the sole Haas Factory Team Mustang. As far as new faces and new places, Josh Berry is now with the Wood Brothers. Noah Gregson is at Front Row. Zane Smith returns to Front Row. Michael McDowell takes Zane Smith's place at Spire. Chase Briscoe replaces Martin Truex Jr. at JGR. And Ryan Preece has found home in that 3rd RFK ride. And of course, the stars have not gone anywhere. Defending champ Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, Ty Gibbs, Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick, Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, Ross Chastain, Kyle Busch, and all the rest. All right, here's what I'm looking forward to in 2025. First off, the intrigue of the in-season tournament, or if there will be any. Is this going to be for fun? Will the drivers take this seriously? Granted, the winner of the tournament won't earn a playoff berth, and I'm kind of thinking that's for the best. However, I do like the $1 million aspect of it. Me personally, I feel this is a little bit of an old throwback to the old Noble 5 days of the late 90s, early 2000s when Winston was still involved with the sport. I like that it's giving these guys a little extra something to compete for. And honestly, I'm interested to see where the knockout format goes with this kind of competition. Literally anything can happen, and we know with NASCAR it usually does. Secondly, let's talk Mexico City. For the first time since Toronto in 1958, the NASCAR Cup Series will have a points-paying race outside the United States. This will be the third ever points-paying race outside of the United States of America. It'll be the first ever race in Mexico. Mexico City will also have the A honor and B burden of being the highest Cup race ever. Highest? Yes. Mexico City and the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez sits over 6,500 feet above sea level. Will the altitude have any effect on the cars? If so, how will it affect them? I know we've seen some things out of this Gen 7 car before, and we know this car is very well built to race on road courses. But let's not pretend altitude won't be an issue. It was an issue for Formula 1, it's an issue for Formula E. I can't help but to think it will be an issue for NASCAR when they get there in June. Father's Day weekend south of the border is going to be very fun. I guarantee that is for certain. As far as drivers, here are some of the big questions I have. Kyle Busch, is this going to be the year he gets back on winning ways? How will he and that 18 fare this year? Also, is there another Supercars champion waiting in the wings to play spoiler in Cup? Supercar champion Will Brown will be making his Cup debut at COTA. He'll also return for the Chicago Street Course. He will do both races with Richard Childress Racing in a third car. And fun fact, Will Brown is the man who replaced SVG in his team back in Australia. And as I said, he's a Supercars champion. Safe to say they made a very sound decision with that. Also, who is going to be destined for a breakout season? John Hunter Nemechek, Noah Gragson, Todd Gilliland, Zane Smith, Justin Haley, Carson Hocevar. Who knows? Who will finally make their name and their presence felt this season? I'm going to have to come back to you guys to do a playoff episode who I think will make the 16-man playoff field this year, because I just had way too much to cover today, and a NASCAR playoff bracket show deserves an episode to itself. Trust me on that one. There you have it, family. A quick little breeze through preview for the NASCAR Cup and Xfinity Series for the 2025 season. The action gets underway Saturday for the Xfinity Series at Daytona. Watch it on the CW, 5 p.m. Eastern. And, of course, the 67th Daytona 500 Sunday, 2:30 Eastern on Fox. Make sure you tune in. I'm telling you, it will definitely be worth the watch. That'll conclude this episode of the Not Speeding, Just Qualifying podcast. As a reminder, follow us on X, IG, and Blue Sky. We are at the handle NSJQ Podcast. And one more time, like, share, and subscribe to us on YouTube. You can also find us on YouTube Music if you prefer that app over the YouTube app. And if you want to follow me on my personal social media handles, I will drop those in the description box to this episode. Thank you guys so much for listening today. Greatly appreciate you guys tuning in. I will see you all next time. Until then, I'm David Lawrence, and remember, you're not living life to the fullest until you're going flat out. So long, everyone.